guys, hello and welcome back to the Spurs-related YouTube channel and podcast. I hope everyone is doing very well on this very hot summer's Saturday. Just finished watching the FA Cup final. Man City 2-1 winners against Man United. Not too many surprises there, but the talking point of today's episode, and it's a live video, so welcome everyone back into the live chat as well. Excited to see some familiar and new faces. Today we're going to be looking at keep, loan or sell Tottenham transfer window edition. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be saying the sell list is bigger than the keep list, but we'll get into things. We'll keep it snappy. We'll keep it moving. We've got like 20 to 30 players to review today. And what better company than, of course, Andre of SpursRelated and the main man, Spurs Talk Show, Sean Butler. Sean, first of all, we'll go to you, mate. It's been a while on the channel. We've been pretty inactive, but it's great for you to be back on here, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good, thanks, guys. Good to be back. Looking forward to discussing all things Tottenham with you guys again, not just today, but in the future. And, where you been? The community's missed you. So welcome back. Welcome back.
Cheers, mate. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, just busy. It's a mixture of being busy. Andre's had uni stuff, plus also Spurs were just killing me, mate. I know that's almost a sign to talk more about it, but honestly, mate, I was going to say stuff I shouldn't, so I had to just have a break. But we're back now. We're back rolling. Summer transfer window. We love all the news and everything over on Spurs-related. So if you are new to the channel, hit the likes, hit the subscribes, and all that good stuff. Andre, very quickly, mate, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Very excited to get this one going, talk about the players, ones that, I have my thoughts, but you know what? I'll reserve it for then. But you're right on that one. Spurs have really been just killing me inside. Exactly
that, mate. Exactly that. I'm sure the sell list is going to be longer. A couple of people in here so far. It looks like there's 10 people. I'm sure the numbers will go up, but also appreciate it's a hot summer's evening and people probably having barbecues and stuff like that. Gregor said mullet man. Sean, is that something to do with you, mate?
I believe so. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that Gregor's been in a few of the comments that of channels I've been on recently, consistently using mullet man, and he hasn't divulged what the relationship is, or maybe he's talking about himself. I don't know. No idea.
Maybe there's a guy. I remember there was a guy called Alex that used to come in our streams, and he used to put steak, and there was no reason for it. He told us once, didn't he, on Trade, but yeah. And Gregor's also saying Angie, oi, oi, oi. Of course, the main favourite to take over at Tottenham, Angie Postecoglou, who I've only just learned to pronounce his name, which has been an absolute nightmare. But guys, this one's not about managers. This one is about players. We've talked a lot about managers on this channel recently, but now we're going into the players. Guys, we're going to bring up slides for most players in the squad, those that are going to be, more talked about than others this window. Are we ready to get down into a bit of analysis on maybe some controversy as well? Maybe some of us think other things, but should we have a go at this?
Yeah, let's get it going.
And those listening on the audio podcast, because obviously we're back putting them on the Spotify and the Apple Pods now, we'll make this, in a listenable version as well. So we're not just, talking off what we're seeing on the screen. But let's get straight into things. First things first. And I've put myself close on the screen. I didn't mean to do that. So yes, Hugo Lloris today was talked about in the headlines, had an interview with a French news agency, and the interview stated that he would like to leave Spurs. He thinks it's the end of an era and he will be assessing his options essentially. That came out a little bit earlier. Sean, first things first, Lloris, what did you make of his season this season? And secondly, do you think it's definitely time for him to move on?
Yes, I do think it's time for him to move on, because I think his season, not just this season, I think ever since he signed his new contract back in January of 2022, halfway through the season before, the frequency of the mistakes just got to a point, a crescendo that resulted in me losing patience. I didn't agree with him starting half of the games that he did towards, I guess after about 30% of the way through the season. It got to a point where his confidence was shot, and it cost us. I think you could make the argument that 12 points, 13 points were arguably dropped by his mistakes alone. And yeah, look, wish him well. He's been a long servant to the club, but I don't think he should have had the captaincy as long as he did, and I don't think he should have been here for the last 18 months. So yeah, happy to see
Yeah.
him go. And thank you for everything, but time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I feel. Like, it's like, thanks for the memories. What a servant. 10 years. He could have easily gone to bigger clubs and won trophies. He stayed loyal. He loves Tottenham. But I think you're spot on. As soon as that contract was signed in January 2022, his form just seemed to dip, dip, dip. And to be fair, and this is like going back 2 years under Mourinho, he kept us in a lot of games over lockdown. And I know that's 2 or 3 years ago, but you're spot on. His form just got, depleted, and it's got to a stage where fans are actually turning a bit toxic on him for I would argue, a club legend, a player that's really given an absolute, amazing stint at Tottenham, like I said, when he could have moved on. So I think there's a bit of disrespect there, but also like you said, thank you, Lloris, but it's time to move on. Andre, what are your thoughts?
See, I disagree. I think we should keep him, but hear me out. Not because I want him to just be the captain and just be the starter. I want him to stay because who do we have coming in? And if we do bring someone in, I think he'd be a good backup. I think he'd be good for the cup games, play his last one. It's not like we're going to sell him for much anyways. Just keep him for one more season, help with that transition, right? That's what Lloris even said when he signed the contract. He wanted this transitional period to happen, right? And so far it hasn't happened, but I think if this season we sign a guy, the transitional period can happen. He'll leave on a free. He can go wherever he wants. We're not going to try and penny pinch any money from anybody. And yeah, I think that's the best way for him to go, honestly, rather than be remembered the way that we just talked about for the last 2 minutes about Lloris's form dipping. I think, he's ready to take a back seat at Tottenham and see the club flourish under someone new, and then he can head out. So I'm going to keep him.
Yeah, for me, it's just a question of, I think Fraser Foster has arguably been our best signing this season. I think you can make an argument for that. He's been pretty consistent, hasn't let anyone down, and I think you have to make room. I do think Tottenham are going to be looking for a goalkeeper in the summer. The options are endless. There's so many good goalkeepers out there on reasonable money. Hugo Lloris is on 110 grand a week. It'll be a nice way. I wouldn't be looking to sell him for any money. I'd like to let him go and just cut the wage bill, if I'm honest. So for me, I'd be happy to bring in a David Raya or a Sarr, or even someone more younger, like a Bazunu from Southampton, whatever. We can talk about that another day. But and then if you have to make a decision around who do you keep as number 2, Fraser Foster or Hugo Lloris, I think that economically, I think Fraser Foster makes a lot more sense. So yeah, I'd stick with my plan on.
It's a really good point, Sean, about the 100%. It's a really good point about the wage bill as well, because I feel like in the last couple of seasons, although people will slam the board for not spending more money, etc., a lot of the problem has been these players that are fixed on very, very high wages. Like you just said, Sean, Hugo Lloris is on 110,000. I believe he's our 3rd or 4th highest earner at the club. However, Lloris probably isn't our 3rd or 4th best player, which is restricting us to sign better players, right? So I think you're spot on. You made a really good point there. 110k a week is an absolute disgrace, to be honest with you, for someone that obviously wasn't even playing at the end of the season. Many of you guys joining now. We're up to 20, 25 people, which is brilliant. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I know a lot of you are from Sean's little shout out on YouTube, so big yourselves up. What do you call your army now, Sean?
The Spurs Talk Show Ponies. The show ponies.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. The ponies. Love it. Here come the ponies. Jason Helms, Lloris has to go past his sell-by date. Tony's saying he's been a great servant, but it's time to go. Felix in there. Big up, Felix. Nice to see you, mate. Maris Palami, I'm really sorry. Mars Palami, I'm really sorry if I got it wrong. He's saying Lloris saved as many points as he dropped with incredible saves. His play with his feet is non-existent, so needs to go. Exactly. This traditional play style isn't great. Dave Harden saying a World Cup winner doesn't want to sit on the bench for the sake of it to help with the transfusion. Jack saying let him go, but get a top goalkeeper instead. No second choices. And Stuart's also saying Lloris gives Chelsea and Arsenal goals every season. Rip up the contract, get Raya. And finally, Claude saying keep Lloris as a goalkeeping coach. Sean, just very quickly before we move on, obviously we've got loads of players to talk through. What are your thoughts about, Lloris coming back as a goalkeeping coach? Because obviously we've had other ex-pros, Jermaine Defoe as one example, coming back and, being part of that coaching staff, Ledley King as well, of course. What do you think on that one?
personally, I was trying to be respectful when I said thank you, but it's time to move on. If I'm entirely honest, I've got a bad sour taste in my mouth. I don't believe he was injured at halftime in the Newcastle game. I think he didn't like what happened. Something must have been said in the dressing room, and I think he maybe felt disrespected. And I think he, shied away from coming out and facing the music. And I don't think that is behavior that is. It's not stand-up behavior that you'd expect of a club captain. So for me personally, nothing. I'm sure he can pass on some skills to the younger, up-and-coming guys like Brandon Austin, etc. But I just think that my relationship with Hugo Lloris is over, and it's a little bit of a sour note to a long career. And I think it's just time to go and cut the cord, so to speak, and wish him well. Send him back to France. Let him go and play his final years for Lyon or Marseille or someone.
Yeah. No. Well summarised there, for sure. Do you think he'll probably end up I can see him back at Lyon. Oh, I don't even know if Lyon would want him, to be honest with you, but let's see. I'm conscious that we've spent 10 minutes talking about Hugo Lloris and we've got about 20 players left. So let's keep this moving. Guys in the chat, already loving all the comments and all the opinions, so keep them coming in. We've even got Levy in here himself. Well, probably not Levy in himself, but he's got him as his profile picture. Anyway, guys, keep them coming in. On to the next one. Andre, maybe you want to kick off on this one. And we kind of linked to the one we just talked about, right? Fraser Forster.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of makes sense what I'm about to say based on my opinion, right? I would like to keep Lloris and just get rid of this guy. I'm sorry. I think he let in a lot of goals. I was not impressed. He was a part of a lot of the games where we got absolutely destroyed. So to me, I'm not impressed by him. We get what we pay for, right? And I think personally, Lloris would be a better backup. There's that whole thing where you said about the wage bill, though. Talking about a player who might not want to be on the bench, but he literally said that when he signed the contract, that he was totally okay with a transitional period to be like the last part of his role for this club. So if you're going to choose between Lloris or Fraser Forster, I would get rid of him. Forster, keep Lloris. That transitional period, we bring in a good goalkeeper, and then after the next season's over, Lloris heads out on a free, does his thing, and then the new guy does his thing. So I would sell this one.
Yeah. Sean, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I understand Andre's point, and obviously it's based on your perspective of who's had a better season and who could be reliable if called upon. Personally, I respect Andre's opinion, but I disagree. I think that Fraser Forster's has been fairly well. Has had a good time, a good performance, generally speaking, in defense, in goal. I feel like the defense in front of him has disappeared at times, and some of the goals that he's conceded were because of poor defending more so than because of mistakes from him. Personally, he's cheaper. I'm always thinking about the economics. That's just the way I am, and so I feel like I'd rather have him as a number two competing with whoever the next guy is, but. Yeah, look, I take Andre's point, but for me, I'd rather if we're going to keep one and get rid of the other, Lloris goes and this guy stays.
Understood. Yeah. Interesting difference in opinion there, I guess. I would say I can't see us getting rid of two keepers in one window, and I think Lloris is gone. And I also think I don't think Fraser Forster was as bad as some people said. I would also say our defense absolutely let him down at times. I mean, the Bournemouth game is really upsetting me every time I think about it. When we just seem to get absolutely let down with the defence, just so easily put through Bournemouth. They had so little chances compared to us, and that was just one of the games where our defence were just absolutely woeful last season at the end. So I think you could put, honestly, one of the best keepers in goal in that back line, behind that back line, and they'd still concede because of the amount of goals we conceded this year. And you've got to look at the defence, you've got to look at the deadwood, you've got to look at Ben Davies, Eric Dyer and the likes of them. Davinson Sanchez, when he's been involved, has been awful. We'll get into those players, so let's move on.
So would you say you kept or sold Fraser Forster?
I am keeping Fraser Forster as a backup, and we need a permanent new number one.
Okay.
Cutty Romero. Now, I'm going to kick things off very quickly here and just say I think he's been found out a little bit this season. And I'm not saying he's nowhere near I'm saying he's a bad player. I think he's a brilliant player, but I think also I'd be very, very scared with him in a back four just because of how he commits so aggressively coming out of the defence. You know, sometimes he has to have cover, and then a 5 at the back is sometimes recoverable, but in a 4 at the back, if we start playing in a 4 at the back with this new manager, I am concerned, and I think I'll be interested to hear what you guys think on that.
Sure. I'll say that right off the bat, I told you so when everyone was going off about this guy being world class and whatnot. And I was always saying, even in a game where he was just always given fouls, and now he's been found out because of the fouls. Some of them are reckless. That being said, he's our best center back we have. And I think a lot of that will be learned over time. He'll learn to make better choices when it comes to those tackles. And I think a part of that also just stems from the fact that other than him, the rest of the center backs don't really help. We don't really have a leader in that back line. And that I think that's the biggest problem. But I would keep him. So.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah. Well, look, I agree with you guys about the rashness. Personally, I also think his attitude stinks. I think there's far too much of a consistency in the theme where when international breaks are coming up, he seems to be injured for Tottenham, but yet always available for his international team. I think he prioritizes Argentina. I didn't believe he was truly injured before the World Cup. It's interesting that he also went missing for the last 3 games of the season, but yet he's immediately into the Argentinian squad. I don't think he cares enough about Tottenham. I like the player. I think he does have bags of potential, but I also think he lacks concentration. There's so much to improve about his game. And yeah, everyone thinks he's a Rolls Royce. He's not to me. I think he will improve if he has a better player next to him who can kind of give him reassurance and be a bit more of a leader than Eric Dyer. And listen, I'll be entirely honest with you. As it stands, of course, if the option is like keep or sell, I would keep him. However, if he doesn't want to be at Tottenham, there are a bag full of wonderful centre-backs out there that are available. And I think that you could command a very hefty price for Romero. And if someone was to come in and pay, 50, 60 million quid for him, I think you could replace him for far less than that with a player as good, if not better than him. So I'll keep him because he's the best that we've got. But like I say, I wouldn't be too annoyed if he wanted out and we could raise the correct money for him, because I really do think he is replaceable. There's so many good centre backs in the market.
Yeah. No, interesting. Especially your point about, finding a competent centre back to go with him, because that's going to be key, especially if we go to a 4 at the back. Guys, loving all these comments, loving all these opinions. There has been a couple of opinions from 1 or 2 of you guys calling people names and stuff like that. Please don't make me, switch off your comments. Please just be respectful of everyone's comments. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. That's why we do these videos. I'm going to have a different opinion to Andre. Andre may have a different opinion to Sean, and so on. You don't need to, completely disrespect your opinion. Put your opinion in the chat by all means, but don't be going off on one that's, really not good. So, yeah, appreciate everyone's comments, but, I won't repeat myself. Quickly on Romero, Andre and Sean, actually, I'll go to Sean on this one. Who are you going for as a centre-back option? Because we're going to be coming on to centre-backs that we're going to be getting rid of in a minute. Who would you say is a good centre-back partnership for Romero?
Well, yeah, if we're going to keep him, which I'm, like I say, more than happy to, as long as his attitude improves, then, I mean, there's so many, mate. There's so many out there. Like, I don't think Indika's got a new club yet. I don't think Hincapia has. I like Bella Kotchap from Southampton. I think you could get him for a relatively small amount of money. I think he's got bags of talent. I like Goalkeeper from down in France. I mean, the list is endless, mate. There's 21-year-old left-footed centre-backs galore. There's right-footed centre-backs. You could go to Crystal Palace. I'd even go to Everton and get Connor Cody for 4.5 million quid. He's available for 4 million quid. He's like, listen, wow. I genuinely think Connor Cody is an improvement on Eric Dyer, on Davinson Sanchez, on Joe Rodon. And at 4 million quid, it's a snip. I'm not saying you want him to be your starting centre-back, but to have him in the squad to mix around. I like the guy that I did a video about this morning that Tottenham are, out of the Turkish media are suggesting that we've already got a deal in place for him. Nelson, Victor Nelson, the Danish centre-back. I think he's amazing with ball at his feet. He can ping long passes, and they're nearly always accurate. He's a phenomenal passer of the ball. Like I say, there's never-ending options in the centre-back role, right-footed and left-footed. So you haven't got to spend a fortune to improve on what we have.
Yeah, a couple of people are saying Guay, Nelson, like you just said, the Palace guys. A couple of people aren't sure on your Cody shout, Sean. I've got to be saying...
Not as a starter, yeah. Just to clarify, I'm not saying I want him to be our starting centre-back. I'm just saying that there is value, that he's a demonstration. If you can get someone of his level for £4.5 million, then it just goes to show you that there's value out there.
Correct. Van Def has made a good point. I was about to mention this guy, Jonathan Tah from Bayer Leverkusen, apparently we're linked with as well. And also, I think there's another guy from Leverkusen as well. He's just put it, there you go, Tap Sober as well. There's a couple of guys in the Bundesliga that would be very, very good options. Zasper saying Tah is the German Eric Dyer. There's people with contrasting opinions in the chat. Absolutely love it, guys. As I said, there's always going to be controversy on these videos, and I absolutely love it. Let's move straight on to that German Eric Dyer, but the English Eric Dyer. It's Eric Dyer himself. I'm going to let someone else talk first. Otherwise, I'm going to get heated within 20 minutes of this video.
I mean, I'll just say it right now. As much as maybe I've, defended some of his playing under the Mourinho, I still think he needs to go. He's had to go for a while. Very inconsistent. Crucial games, he just lets us down almost every time. So get him out. Sell, please. I think Mourinho at Roma might like him. So give Mourinho a call. See if he'll take some money. He'll give some money for him.
So everyone so far is saying Eric Dyer. Sell Eric Dyer, get rid, such a fraud, etc. Claude has said bench him. He can help out in midfield. Sean, what is your thoughts on Eric Dyer, and do you think he can help out in midfield?
No, but you know what? I actually do think that I know we've just finished with him, but I actually do believe that Christian Romero could be reworked. I don't think he would want to do this because he's settled as a centre-back for Argentina, but I actually think that Romero's ability to be a defensive midfielder would be interesting to experiment with at some point. Don't ever see it happening, but just putting it out there, I do think he has the skill set, the capabilities to be a monster number 6.
I agree.
What I would say with regard to Eric Dyer is get rid of him. The idea of him getting a new contract is laughable. And, I'd even go as far as to tear up his contract, let alone look for any kind of compensation. I think his confidence is shot, but I also think his skill set has been exposed. Even highly confident Eric Dyer is still nowhere near good enough for a Tottenham rebuild. So thanks for everything, but see you later.
Yeah, thanks for nothing, really. His loyalty cannot be faulted, but at the same time, I don't think many clubs have come in for him. I wish we got rid of him, if true that Man United came in for him that time with £60 million bid. Can you imagine? We would have been absolutely laughing to the houses, but we weren't fortunate enough to get rid of him. And I think there was a bit of preciousness about that, keeping hold of him because he was almost like our leader and everything else. And I just think we got well caught up in the fact that he was overperforming for what he was at the time under Poch, wasn't he, really? So, yeah, that's just my opinion. But most people are saying get rid of him. I think that's an easy one. Guys, there's like 30-something people in the YouTube absolutely loving the support. It's really, really appreciated, especially for sort of a short notice video. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, a little bit of a plug here, please do hit that sub button. It's free to do so, and smash a like as well. Helps this channel massively, helps us to be able to do more videos like this and improve the setup, etc. So whether you're on audio pods, I'm watching after, or YouTube now, smash the thumbs up. Be very, very grateful to do so. Let's move on. Davinson Sanchez. I'm letting Sean take this one away first.
Tear it up. See you later. Bye-bye.
Simple as that. Simple as that. Yeah,
I agree. Nothing more to say. Just sell him or tear it up, whatever. Just get him out. I'm sorry. No, all respects to him as a player, as a person, but just get him out.
Do you know what? I'm gonna maybe say something a little bit controversial here, but I think it's a massive shame it hasn't worked out. I'm surprised we haven't sold him 2 or 3 years ago. But when he came in 2018, I was so excited from Ajax. I was thinking we've got some absolute gems from Ajax in the past. Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, and I'm thinking this is the third one of these guys that is just going to be incredible. Couldn't have been more wrong. He sort of had an all right start, and then it just went progressively downhill to the point where he comes on against Bournemouth in the 20th minute because I think we had an injury, and he made a mistake within 5 minutes. And then we just that Bournemouth game again, it really pissed me off. But yeah, I just think sell. But I do think it is a shame it didn't work out because he came in with a big reputation, if you remember. And I just think, wow, it couldn't have gone much worse than that, to be honest.
I don't want to even worry about selling him. I just think he's got a year left on his contract. Tear it up, let him go, because there's an opportunity cost, right? Every time you have to put someone out in the shop window, you spend weeks and weeks and weeks negotiating over a few million quid. Unfortunately, Daniel Levy has to bite the bullet here and go through a very expensive, painful rebuild where he's writing down a lot of these assets to zero because look, you might be able to get £5 million from him. You might be able to get 6 or 7 at some point, but how much time are you going to waste trying to find a suitor for him when you have so many other things you have to be doing at the same time? Time is short this summer and there's so many things to do. Like, it's not worth worrying about. Just tear up his contract and sayonara, Davinson.
No, I agree. And I think a part of this does kind of go back to an episode we did a few, like last week, where we talked about the selling problem and how, unfortunately, Levy's kept all these players past their sort of good selling point. We're going to get no money for these guys. So I kind of agree with you at this point. You're just going to have to bite the bullet, move on, and just realize that Sanchez could have gone for good money at some point, but he's been consistently inconsistent, and now we're not going to get anything for him. So,
yep, exactly that, guys. Simple one there. Let's move on again. Clement Longley. Now, I think we might have a little bit of discussion on this one because I reckon even in between the three of us, there is going to be a differing opinion, because my opinion is there is a lot of fans I've seen on Twitter that want him permanent, but there's also, it's a very split decision, and there's also a lot of people that think he's very overrated. How on earth he was in a Barcelona team, I don't know. He's slightly better with his feet than some of our centre-backs, but we're talking about the players we've just absolutely ripped apart. I'm concerned if we're signing this kind of permanent. And like you said earlier, Sean, there is so many centre-backs that we could get, and we're thinking about signing this guy just because it's probably more convenient, just because we'll probably get a better deal from Barcelona. For me, it's not even a sell, is it? It's just don't loan again and don't buy. What do you guys think?
I would think, especially because of all of the money we'll probably, hopefully, be spending, the only way I would say keep him is if we're just extending his loan. That's about it. I wouldn't personally buy him as soon as the loan, ends next season and we have the money to bring in another defender. He can just do his thing. I'm not interested in buying this one. When I saw him in Barcelona, I always thought he was one of the weaker defenders, and that's the same, honestly, for Tottenham. He's made some big mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. Sean?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on this one. I think he can play the ball. It depends on the manager, right? I think we're making the assumption, if we're going to make the assumption that it's Ange Postecoglou, then if Ange is going to want to play with a bit of a higher line in the back four, I don't know if he's got the pace in him. He's got a really big turning circle. We've seen so many times this season when he's been run at by fast, tricky wingers, inside forwards on the right-hand side, on our left, down their right, that he gets exposed. Good on the ball, terrible off of it. I think he's very expensive on the salary, on the wage side of things. So, yeah, in an ideal world, as long as we've got targets that we can go and activate and take action on, then I think we can do better than him. At the same time, though, if you can get him for £5 million and he's willing to take a massive haircut on the wages he's getting at Barcelona, and we wanted to go big on like a Gleison Bremer or someone else who can come in and be the pace and the power at the back that can kind of somewhat disguise his particular weaknesses, then he'd be okay as a rotation player. But generally speaking, if you have to push me on one or the other, I'd say, send him back. And but it's a nice guy, apparently, really, and he's been good around the dressing room. So thanks for the season. I don't think you disappointed. I thought you were probably one of our best, if not our best centre back, especially in the first half, but probably not good enough for what we want to rebuild now. So
I think that's a fair
let's
reflection.
say no.
I think that's a fair reflection. Like you said, you probably edge towards let's not keep him, but if we can somehow get his wages down, etc., maybe a good backup, like you said. Right, Joe Rodon obviously had a loan spell in the French league this season. I was hearing good things that he'd done pretty well. I think he got a red card on his debut, but we can skip over that one. Thoughts, guys, because I actually completely forgot he was a player because it's just like we loaned so many players this season that you kind of forget that they're a Tottenham player at the end of the day.
Well, look, I think when Mourinho wanted a defender, we were looking at Inter defenders and I think a Villarreal defender, and then we got Joe Rodon. All respects to him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure every player is, nice outside the pitch and they do their thing. But as a player, he's never really broken to the first team. He had a few matches and they would always end up with him going back to the bench. If he's done well in the French league, cool. Let's find a deal then if they want to keep him and sell him while we can before he gets found out again and he goes for nothing. So sell.
Sean, you're
yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, 3 managers have run their eye over him at Tottenham. None of them have seen anything in him that they fancy. So let's again another chalk it up to experience and move on. I don't know what you'll get for him. Not much, but
exactly. It's a shame, and he's still quite young, so it's a massive shame. And Zarspurs has just put in the chat on YouTube, we could have got Kim Min-jae for less.
Yeah,
Levy at his finest. Rodon is as thick as a plank too. He's not an intelligent player. I think it's fair to say most people want him gone. Most people want him sold if we can get a good price. Seeing a lot of familiar faces like the Sukil and guys that have been in here before. Big yourselves up. Appreciate you guys coming back to the channel. Let's move on. Tanganga. We've already briefly mentioned it. A lot of people in the chat are saying get rid of Dyer, Davies and Tanganga. For me, again, shame. A lot of hype about him a couple of years ago, wasn't there? Especially under Mourinho. Mourinho was giving him a chance. But every time he's been involved, he's not set the world alight. He's not been very competent. And for me, I would probably... I think I'd loan him once more, but I think a lot of people also want him sold. I would loan him once more if the loan doesn't go well. If we don't see him getting in the team again, then sell.
Yeah, I would agree.
Guys?
I was going to say loan. I think, he's homegrown. It's worth it to just give him one more chance, loan him somewhere where he can actually be challenged, but also where he could maybe make the first team break into it and then come back fresh and see how he does. Obviously, if he doesn't perform well there, then we'll see how it goes. But I mean, it's not like we're going to get any money for him now. So best take a chance by just loaning him out one more time and hoping something comes out of it. But yeah, loan for me.
Sean?
I actually think you could get some money for him. I think that he was there was quite a lot of interest in him in Italy last summer and in January that never materialized. The only concern, I don't see him forging a career in the Premier League, or at least at Tottenham. The only concern I have about getting rid of him is the homegrown numbers. We need some people to stay in the squad who can bulk up that list, and he's one of them. Look, you're going to need to have 5 defenders in the squad. I don't mind him being the 4th or 5th on the list, but yeah, the homegrown side of things is the only real argument in my mind for him to stay. Apart from that, don't see him really ever being a first teamer for Tottenham.
No, good point about the homegrown as well. If we got a choice of getting rid of a different kind of player, for the homegrown sake, I think you're right. I think it makes sense to keep him or potentially loan him. And Mark Cousins is in here as well. Big up Mark, saying big up, keep all of them and get rid of Levy. Guys, if I don't get your comment read out, of course, we are trying to move this quick. We are trying to give our opinions and also get your opinions involved as well. So please do excuse if I don't read them all out. But I think this one could cause a bit of a stir in the chat as well. It's Ivan Perisic. It is the 34-year-old Croatian himself. And for me, guys, I'll kick things off. I think I just don't think he's got the legs anymore. And this is not just... If we got Ivan Perisic 5 years ago, I'd have been so buzzing, right? You know, he was a very, very good player, set the world alight in the World Cup 2018, set the world alight for his national team. But for me, we're just fitting him in as a left wing back, and it obviously completely depends who we get in terms of the formation. But I just don't see, if we go to a 4 at the back, he's not a left back, so I just don't know where he fits in. Is he going to be coming off the bench as a left winger? Probably not. You know, I just think if we can get anything for him, then great. If not, he's probably going to end up on a free again, I think. Sean, what are your thoughts on this one, mate?
Look, again, I think he wants to go, right? He came for Conte. Conte's gone. I don't think he wants to stay. I don't want anyone in the club who doesn't want to be here. If I don't want to tear up his contract, though, he's on 180 grand a week. I don't want to just pay the guy 8 million quid because he's unhappy and then send him on his way. I do think he offers some value. He's got, I think he's, our leading assist contributor this season. So if he wants to stay, I'd like to have him around the squad. If he expects to go and have his contract paid out in full, then absolutely not. I'm not paying 8 million quid for a guy to go home. If he wants to tear up the contract and go, then I'd let him go for free. But I don't want to have to pay out, the contract for him. So happy to have him on the bench, happy to use him in special times. I think he could offer some value occasionally, only if he wants to be here. But if it comes down to him going home, but we have to pay out the contract, then no, I'd rather have him around because I do think he has a little bit of value to offer in certain circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. And someone just put in the chat 185 grand a week apparently he's on. I don't know how true that is, but
yeah, it's true.
If that, that's another one off the wages. Lloris and Perisic is like 300k combined a week is absolutely mental. So let's get rid of both of them probably. Wow, another player you kind of just completely forget is a Tottenham player, Serge Reguilon. Now, where do we start? I've never been a massive fan of the guy. I think when he came in, there was a lot of hype. He's quick, but his final cross or his final product is awful. And I remember being in the Brighton away end at Brighton and v Tottenham at the Amex, and he was through one-on-one twice, and I never let him live it down. One-on-one twice, and he put it straight at the keeper both times, and it was the most tame shot. His final product isn't great. I don't think Atletico Madrid have been using him much. I know he's had his injury problems, and I know he's had surgery, so you've got to factor that in as well. But I just don't think, and he's got quite high wages, I just don't think we keep this guy. I think we cash him while we can, try and get some money. Maybe Atletico Madrid want to purchase him. I'm not too sure. But that's my point. I would sell.
I agree with you to an extent. A part of me wants to keep him because it was just such an exciting signing, and he started out doing so well. I think a part of it is there's this recency bias, at least for me, that I'm thinking about those things where it was like he had some clean chances and he wasn't finishing at all. But you have to remember that with a Conte system, the left wing backs have the hardest job, right? They have to come back to defend. They have to go forward. They'll get chances to score, and they have to score. That's why he brought someone like Perisic, because that's what he was doing at Inter. But if we go 4 at the back, do you give him one more chance or do you cash out? And personally, I agree. I would cash out while we can. He's done some horrific mistakes in the games where we were playing 4 at the back. And I remember a time where he literally got done over by, I can't remember which team it was. He just went sliding all the way out of the field, and then the other guy came in and scored. So, yeah, cash in, sell.
Sean, quick thoughts on this one, mate?
Now, I actually agree with ZAR Spur. I often do agree with the man in the comments. I would keep him and sell Sessegnon. I know we're going to skip ahead to Sessegnon, but just to combine 2 in 1. The reason why I would keep him is because I think Sessegnon is absolutely awful. And that also is the reason why I would go back and keep Tanganga, because without Sessegnon and without Tanganga, then we have the homegrown issue. So keep Tanganga, sell that guy, and bring back Reguilon. I think Reguilon has far more to offer than this guy. He's got all of the physical fragility of a paper cup. And he's had too long at Tottenham.
As you've naturally moved it on anyway, let's talk Sessegnon very quickly. I completely agree. I think this guy has been absolutely found out, and there's that clip going around every time on Twitter. It makes me so angry against Arsenal. I know it was either against Liverpool or Arsenal very early on, and the crowd was really getting up for it. 5 minutes in, Kane did this ridiculous turn, spun 3 Arsenal players, put it out wide to Sessegnon on the left, and he ran down the line. You're thinking, put a good cross in, and he did the most P-roller cross I've ever seen, and that is not the only time he's done it. His final ball is awful. I'm not really sure how he used to score 20 goals for Fulham in a season, or it was just one season. And as a left,
he's scared of his own shadow as well, mate. He looks absolutely terrified in all the big games. The only time I've ever seen him do anything, I remember against Liverpool, I think it was the season before last, Conte's first season, he pocketed Salah in one game. And I think everyone was like, oh, look, whenever we're up against a really good inside forward, you play Sessegnon because he can pocket based on a 1-game sample size. Apart from that, Sessegnon is terrified. He's got absolutely no desire, no bravery. He shies away from challenges that are difficult. 50-50s, he's nowhere near. Not for me. I think he's rubbish.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Quickly skipping back to Ben Davies, as that was the next on the order. But you're right, it naturally made sense to talk about Sessegnon there. Ben Davies, for me, do you know what? I don't think he deserves the hate he gets. I think he's actually a bit underrated. However, I still don't think he's the level we want. And especially if we're going to a 4 at the back, I don't want to see him at left back. I think he was a much better left centre back, especially under Conte. He did really well in the season where we got Champions League. However, I think if we're going to a 4 at the back, which it probably looks likely, I would genuinely think about getting rid of this guy.
He's not underrated at all. I personally think he needs to go. I think there's been this whole thing where, he can play 2 different positions, and that makes him much more valuable. Then take that value and sell him. I would sell this one. I'm sorry. Thank you for everything and for being available for multiple positions when players have gotten injured, but it's time to go.
Van Def thinks keep. Claude thinks sell. Sean, what are you thinking?
I think you keep him for a back 4 because I like the idea of we've got Porro and Udogie, and you can't play both of them if you're playing a back 4. They're both too offensive. So I'd love to imagine Tottenham going into some sort of like the way that Bayern Munich used to operate under Nagelsmann, like it essentially looks like a 3-1-5-1 system where one of the fullbacks, is used far further up the pitch. And then you have like a monster number 6, like a Kimmich, to sit in and protect the back 3. And the other fullback becomes the centre back. So if you're going to play Udogie on left in certain games, you could ask Emerson to play on the right and tuck in. If you want to use Porro on the right in certain games, then you can play Ben Davies and ask him to sit in as a left back, but which is kind of like a makeshift third centre back on the left-hand side. I think he offers utility in games where you do want to be able to pivot to a back 3. He can play there. If you want to play in a wing-back system, he can play there. Like I say, as a full-back, he can be utilised in a variety of ways. So I think he's worth keeping because of his utility more than anything else.
No, interesting analysis as well, especially like you said, because we have got much more attacking options, and Ben Davies can sort of go, you guys get forward and I'll stay back, and also form that left centre back in the 3 if it became a 3. So I think it's really good analysis, Sean, and I think a lot of people are also agreeing with you in keeping him. Most people saying he's a good squad player, etc. So yeah, interesting one there. Jed Spence is the next one on our list. Now, I've heard he's had a good loan spell at Rennes. I haven't seen much of him play. I actually saw the game where he played against PSG and they won 2-0, and Leo Messi and the likes couldn't score. Mbappe. What do we think? I think he needs a chance. I think we need to keep him, not put him on loan, and I think he really, for me, from what I've seen of him, isn't much worse than Emerson Royale.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to keep him. I understand the loaning and getting some more opportunities out there, but we could have given him opportunities. We were already not doing well. Why not just give him opportunities to start showing what he can do and get acclimated to the Premier League? So he should stay. Keep him.
I think for me, I think you have to have a space for Emerson in the squad for the reasons I mentioned before, with the Udogie and Porro. If you want to use Porro, again, depends on the manager and the formation. If you want to use Porro as a right back for occasion, or as someone who can interchange with Kulusevski, then I don't know if there's space for Jed Spence. And so for that reason, I would loan him to a Premier League club like a Luton or one of the teams that are coming up and see what he can do. I don't think that he is ready yet for...
Sure, the only thing I disagree on that quickly, mate, is we've seen what he can do at Nottingham Forest, and I know that was in the Championship, but I mean, he was part of the team that got them up convincingly 2 seasons ago, and I think there was a lot of hype around him at the time. We were very excited to see what he could do in the Premier League, and I know you're saying, you know, put him at a team that's slightly lower down in the Premier League, although I would argue if we lose Harry Kane, we'll probably be on Luton's level anyway.
Yeah,
what else does he have to prove? I mean, he's done pretty well in Ligue 1. He's done well at the Championship in a very good team that got promoted. I just feel like he needs to be given a chance, no?
I just don't think there's space in the squad. That's the problem. I've got no problem with him. I hope he'll be a part of our future. But I just think that you can only have 2 players for every position in a 25-man squad. And then you have 3 utility players. One of those goes to a goalkeeper, a third goalkeeper. So you have 2 more spots. You have 2 players for each position, and then 2 additional utility players. And I think that you've already got Emerson and Porro at the right back slot that I think are more important than this guy. So unless you want to give one of those 2 spots to a third right back, then I don't think you should. I think you should reserve one of those for a midfielder and for a forward. So for me, like I say, it's nothing against him. I just don't think that there's space in the squad right now. I don't think he's probably not ready. I would loan him out to a Premier League club and see what he can do. That would just be the way I, just on a allocation of space. That's it, basically.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And one more thing, Van Dev just said Matt Doherty, the Irish Cafu. I would just say that last window, I think, was really, really poor. And the fact that we almost tore up Matt Doherty's contract, let him go to Atletico Madrid, it was an absolutely crazy decision. And I think out of the right backs we had at the time, he was probably up there with being our best right back. And I mean, I think that was a crazy decision, but I don't want to go off on a tangent. Pedro Porro is the next player to talk about. Now, obviously, this is pretty easy for me. I think this will be a quick one. I think he's done pretty well since coming in. I think there's been a couple of times in a couple of games where he's been found out with his defensive abilities. However, I think things will improve under a new manager. And I think he needs a bit of time in a bigger league like the Premier League. But I think he got something like, I need to get the stats up, but I think it was like 6 or 7 goal contributions. And for me, that's pretty decent coming in, contributing to our team in a pretty poor season. I think it's keep for 100% keep this year. And hopefully another 2, 3, 4 years. Let's hope he turns into an absolute monster, right?
No, I agree. I think we keep him. A little worried because obviously he was brought in for 5 at the back, and now he's 4 at the back. And I mean, I've seen some of that defensive positioning was not very good, but you can't lie that like the contributions he's given to those goals has been great, and it's something that a lot of our right backs haven't been able to do until we brought him. So, yeah, keep 100%.
Yeah, Sean, easy one.
Yeah, I agree. Keep.
Cool. Right, we're halfway there. We've got about 15 minutes left, so let's keep this short and snappy. Emerson Royal, for me, easy one. It's a keep on the basis that he has improved this season, especially at the start. However, I still don't think he's an incredible player. I really don't, but I think he's good as a second choice right back. But whether he wants to be that, I'm not too sure. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I would keep him for now, see what happens. He originally played with 4 at the back, and I always said this when it came to playing 5 at the back and he was struggling. It's like, yeah, you're not playing him in the position that he normally played. So let's see how he does this season. Maybe he'll get better playing 4 at the back if we bring someone who does that. Or, it's all up to him. But I'd keep him.
Sean?
Yeah, keep him. He's a cult hero to me. I really like him. I think he's getting better. I think he's brilliant defensively in the right-sided centre-back role if you want to play him in a back 3 as well. I think he's improving, and I love his attitude, spending a lot of money on his own self-improvement, taking out those analytical research. I think he spent £1 million of his own money to try and improve. Got to love a trier. Yeah, no question for me. He's definitely someone to keep.
Yeah, someone's just put Royal has made some brilliant tackles. He's very good now, and could be world class in the future. He's got desire and his heart. pretty much what you're saying, Sean. You know, really.
I wouldn't call him
really
world
good
class. I
attitude.
think world class is a term that's thrown around a little bit too loosely. I know he's not saying he's world class now, but I don't think he's got, like, for me, world class is top 5 or top 3 in your position around the world, and I don't think he probably has that higher ceiling. But yeah, a very capable, very competent player, no doubt about it.
Agreed. Ollie Skip. Wow. Where do we start with this guy?
Sell.
I think it's blossoming into what I said 2 years ago, Andre, when we started doing this. He's going to be Harry Winks number 2, right? He's going to be a player that we keep on the fringes. He comes in sometimes when we have injuries, and then everyone's saying, sell. This guy is garbage. I don't want it to get toxic for Skip. I think he's a really nice chap. I think he's a really nice guy, and I think he actually isn't a bad player, but just not a Tottenham Hotspur. I just don't think it works. We saw how good he was at Norwich. That's probably his level, if I'm being brutally honest, or bottom of the Premier League sort of team. I would sell him to a team that would really, you know, do well with his services, like a top end of the Championship or bottom end of the Premier League team.
Yep. What happened? This guy was like, he was up and coming. I mean, I would loan him. I would give him one more chance. Loan him to basically what Sean said about who was it? Spence. Loan him to another Premier League club, see how he does, comes back refreshed, see how he does in the first team. Because unfortunately, it can be very demoralizing when you're in a specific, you know, spot in the pecking order and then you start dropping down. So I would loan him to a Premier League club if you can do that before it's just selling him.
Cool. Højbjerg. This is a spicy one because I think the fan base is very, very split on PM and Højbjerg. Sean, I'm going to let you kick off on this one, mate.
Depends if I think we can raise a lot of money for him. I think you could easily get 30 million quid. And if we've got enough time, if we've got enough ambition, there's a lot of midfielders out there that are better than him. I think he's a workhorse. I think he's got an amazing engine, but I just don't really know what he's in everything. He's a jack of all trades. He's not particularly excellent going forward. He's not particularly excellent going backwards. He can pass a ball, but he can also make mistakes. He can go missing in games. When he wants it, he's really good. When he doesn't, it's very noticeable. I think you keep him probably because of the fact that Bentancur is out injured for the majority of next season, or at least half of the season. But if a big bid came in for 35 million or something like that, I think you take it, and then you could go and get like a Lavia from Southampton for the same money, and then you've got a player for the next 6 years that has bags of potential.
Yeah, I agree. I personally think this player's underrated. I think he does a lot more than what people think. Because I mean, the closer you are to the back, the closer you are to the net in that position, the more costly your sort of mistakes are. And unfortunately, he's usually the midfielder that stays back. So when he does make a mistake, it can be costly. And I think people focus on that more than all the stuff he actually can do. But I do agree that if a big, bid comes in, sell him. But as far as I'm concerned, at least for now, I'd keep him. If no bid came in, really, keep him.
Fair enough, guys. Good analysis. I would say keep it unless we get a very, very good price for him. And I think he does get a lot of hate, but I also don't think he's an absolute world beater. I think he's much better than a Skip, but I don't think he's as good as Bentancur. Put it that way. I think that's a really good summary. Cool. Next one is the guy I've just talked about, Rodrigo Bentancur. It's the biggest keep I've ever heard in my life. He's the second best player in the team for me.
Yep.
Well, what more can you say? This guy's brilliant.
Yep.
You saw the impact. You saw the impact when we lost him through injury. I mean, we just fell apart. We looked like we'd lost our whole midfield, not just one player, right?
Oh, agree. Very versatile. Can find those passes from like across the field. And he doesn't have to shoot it up or anything. He just passes on the ground and it makes it there. So keep 100%. No discussion really needed for this one.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, keep.
Yves Bissouma, easy keep for me. I don't think he got the chance. I don't think he got the platform to play under Conte. I don't really know why Conte wasn't a fan, but he wasn't. It's a keep, as Van Def is saying.
He's a new signing for us next season. I think he'll if we play with a 3 in midfield, he'll be like a brand new signing for us because we barely saw him last year. So very excited
No,
to see what he can do.
I agree. There's so much that any manager comes in, he'll want to figure out what to do with Bissouma and how to make the best out of him because his form in Brighton was amazing. So 100% keep.
Yep. Cool. Next player is Pape Matar. Sean?
I keep him. I think he'll work. If it's Postecoglou, Postecoglou likes players with high energy, high engagement, and big engines. And the one thing that's absolutely clear about this guy is that he can run and run and run. He's got, I call him Daddy Longlegs. He covers so much ground. He's got a good engine, good wide range of passing. Was really impressed in the Milan game. Don't know why we haven't seen more from him. I think he is someone to use in a squad rotation. So, and I've got high expectations for him. So yeah, keep 100% keep.
Spot on. Completely agree. Echo your thoughts. Keep.
I would personally, I would look for a loan, but not in the French league. I would look for a loan for a more competitive side. If we can't do that, I would keep him. He has done his work, and depending on the manager that comes in, I'm sure they'll find a way to use him properly. But other than that, loan for me.
Tanguy and Ndombele. How long have we got? I mean, I'll keep it actually quite short. I think he's done okay at Napoli. He wasn't first team for them, but when he came on, apparently he was pretty decent. I just don't like his attitude. I don't like his fitness. People are saying give him one more chance. I mean, how many chances can you give a guy? For me, it's the attitude thing that I really don't like. I know he's a talented player, but for me, I would honestly look to sell him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Time to find a new home for him. Attitude was never there for him. So.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So.
Harry stinks.
Well, tear it up.
Sell.
See you later.
Yep. Sell it.
Yeah. Guys, we're skipping through them quite quickly. Just wary of time. We could have done a part 2, but I mean, to be honest, the main talking point is the defense. It's, it's the one that's the most controversial in terms of which ones can we actually sell. Lo Celso, for me, I'd look is similar to what we just said about Ndombele. Maybe his attitude isn't quite as bad as his, but I would look to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we're weary on midfield, depending, I would actually try and maybe see what he can do because he actually did have a good attitude. So I would try and keep him if we needed more midfield.
Brian Hill, the Europa League winner.
Keep him. I love him. I think I think he's brilliant. I think he's a brilliant player. Don't understand why none of the other managers have really wanted him. I don't even think he necessarily, this argument he has to strengthen up or beef up or whatever. Modric wasn't a strong player. You can use that. You can use your lightweight center of gravity to your advantage. If a lightweight, low center of gravity to your advantage, if you're a clever player. I think he is becoming better and better to watch overseas, but I don't see the point of loaning him again. Everyone knows what he can do in Spain. I think if he wants to come back, I don't know if he wants to come back to England, but if he does, I'd love to see him. I also think he would do really well under a Postecoglou system, so I want to keep him.
Yeah, and I think he's such an impact player as well off the bench. Every time we used him off the bench, it looked like we had this an incredible talent that was coming on and just causing carnage. I mean, he was a handful. He was running at defenses. He wasn't afraid to take on a man. I think that's what we're really lacking in this team. Since obviously Lucas Moura sort of lost his pace and everything, Son doesn't seem to be able to beat his man like he used to. Hill was that guy that came off and just really terrorized defenders. Kulusevski does, but he didn't run at the defenders as much last year, whereas first year he was incredible. Really think we lacked Brian Hill last year. I really, really do last season. Talking about Kulusevski, I think it's, for me, apparently some reports are saying we're looking at making it permanent. Others are saying we're not. What do you think, guys? I think we've got a couple more minutes.
I would keep him. He still does his job. I think overall the squad was just in bad form, not just him. When he is in good form, he's amazing, to be honest. And I think he's a really good player in general. And more than anything, I just think that the way that they've figured it out, I think it's what we'll be paying in 5 installments. So it's not that bad. I'd keep him.
Yep, keep him. I love him. I think he's great. I think he struggled recovering from an injury. I don't think he trusts his hamstring just yet, but a summer with lots of work, the laser on it, rebuild all his fiber and stuff, and getting back to full confidence. He had a bad season, but so did everybody else. I think he's a really talented player, very strong, very powerful. And even though he looks like he's 29, he's 23. So, pay the money. As Andre was saying, 5 installments is fine. It's barely anything at all. Keep him. And this guy, keep him as well.
Heung-min Son. Probably going to cause more controversy in the chat. For me, I would 100% keep him. We saw moments of absolute, brilliance. And for me, he's a world-class football player. Whether you think he is now or not is another matter. He's 31 years old nearly. But for me, he is an incredible player. And I think if we lost him, we would regret it. And I just think also he hasn't quite been the same since he had COVID. I think there's something going on there with his running. He just doesn't run as quick. I know he's also losing his pace a little bit, but he's not 50. He's 30 years old. So I don't quite know what happened after COVID. If you guys remember, I think he took a bit of time off when he had it, and he just isn't running. He isn't taking on his man as much, which is a real shame. But we can see what happens when he's on the edge of the box. He can absolutely belt one in top right. We saw a couple of times last season against Leicester. He looked absolutely unplayable when he came off the bench. He's still got that hunger. He's still got the desire. I absolutely love Sonny. For me, it's 100% keep. And obviously, we all know that the commercial side of things, it makes sense to keep him as well.
Oh, I agree. Keep him. Sometimes you just have to revitalize a player, find a new way to make it work for him. People lose their pace, it happens. So I would keep him though.
Shawnee?
Yep, keep all day long.
Oh my goodness.
Sell. Hate him.
Go on then, Sean. I'll let you go first.
Hate him. I never wanted the money. I never wanted the player. If it was 20 million quid, I didn't see the value in him. I don't see it now. 60 million quid was ridiculous. I just think he can't trap a bag of cement. He wants to be a flair player. He overcomplicates everything. I had bets with people that he would score less than 5 goals at the start of the season, and I wasn't wrong. I have absolutely no time. I've never had when he was at Watford or Everton. I've always thought he is bang average as a football player. If we can get 35 million pound for him and take a 15 million pound haircut, a 20 million pound haircut, I would bite your hand off. I think he is useless, genuinely useless.
60 million pounds we paid for this guy, and oh my goodness. And you can, Andre will back me as well. I was like you, Sean. When we got him, I was so subdued. I was like, why are we paying 60 million for this guy? We could get 2 incredible talents for that price, and we wasted 60 million on this guy. Yeah, he had a pretty okay World Cup, but bloody hell, he scored 2 goals against Marseille in the Champions League. He scored 1 goal at Liverpool, and then, by the way, it was absolutely, ruined by, what happened after that. But 60 million pounds, I think you're right, Sean. If we can get 30, 40 million, get him gone. But I know that Levy's ways aren't like that. He'll want to try and keep him, won't he? He'll want to try and see the value on the asset. He won't want to take a cut on that asset of 30 million in a year, will he?
No, definitely not.
I really do think it's one of those things, again, where we spent so much money that the hate is just extra because of it. So
I'm skipping over Dane Scarlett because I think for me it's an obvious keep. He's been out on loan at Portsmouth. Not sure it was the best loan spell, but he did well for the England under-20s, I've heard.
I think I'd loan him again.
Yeah, I probably would loan. But Harry Kane, we just want to quickly wrap it up. I mean, for me, it's an obvious keep, but I will say I've started to feel very, very sorry for him in the fact that he is playing in a team full of absolute, what words do I use? I mean, he's playing in a team that's far, far, far worse than what he should be. He should be winning trophies. He's an absolute, he's an absolute legend. And if he does go, I will not have any hard feelings. I think we're holding him back now. I think he's scoring 30 goals in a team coming 8th, with an awful, awful season is incredible.
Oh, man. I mean, look, I think that my heart breaks to say this, but if we want to be able to fund the players that we want, I think this is the guy that will get us that kind of money. He's close to 30. How much more can we ask of him? I think you sell him and you use that money to get yourself some good players in the spots where even with a Harry Kane on our team, we can't even make European football. That's just what I think. I think he's done more than enough for us. Time to bring in the money. So So,
Sean, your final thoughts on the video, Harry Kane?
It just depends on what he wants to do. If he has a conversation with Daniel Levy, which I think is scheduled for either late last week and we don't know about it, or next week. If he says he wants out, he absolutely wants out, and that if he's not allowed out this summer, he will run down his contract. If that's how he feels, then you have to sell him, as long as the price point is commensurate with the risk of him not being here. If you think that Tottenham can finish 5th next season, then with the coefficient points that we have in Europe, that would be enough for Champions League. Champions League is 70 million quid. The difference between finishing 5th and higher or 6th and lower is Harry Kane's 30 goals. So if he wants out and he wants to go this summer, otherwise you lose him for free, then if a bid comes in that is more than 80 million quid, 90 million quid, then I think you take it. In an ideal world, abroad. I don't think he'll want to, because I don't think he'll want to sacrifice his Premier League record. I personally think he will stay, not just this summer. I actually think by the time next summer comes around, any of the teams that wanted him in the Premier League will have found and gone in a different direction. And so if he can't leave and get his guaranteed trophy at, say, Manchester United, because they don't need him anymore, I think he'll end up staying at Tottenham as a one-club man. It's probably a brave prediction, but I think he'll be here until he retires. But yeah, if he wants to go, if he 100% wants to go, then let him go and get your 100 million or whatever you can get.
And I think you're right. And I think it was a really good point about the difference between Champions League and Europa League and the prize you get for that. And I think you're right. If he does want to leave, let's cash in and think about the future, because we're going to have to rebuild around him. We're going to have to get a striker in that's nowhere near his level, but we're going to have to roll with it, and we're going to get the money that we would have got for Champions League with him, like you said. But I think we're not even going to get Europa League or Champions League next year with Harry Kane, if I'm being honest. But that's another video, guys.
At some point, James, Tottenham will have no more Harry Kane, whether it's this summer, next summer, or in 4 years' time. He will have kicked his last ball for us at some point. We have to get used to a life without Harry Kane.
Yeah, as sad as it is, we do have to plan for the future. We do have to look at a striker for the future, like you said, in 3-4 years or whatever it may be. So you're spot on. But guys, I really did enjoy that video. Sean, massive thanks to you for jumping on as well, mate. Really do appreciate it. Where can people find you, mate, if they don't know?
Spurs Talk Show, all one word.
Spurs Talk Show, all one word in the YouTube, guys. I'll whack it in the comments. I'll whack it in the description after this. But please do go and sub to Sean. Even if, there's 2 or 3 of you that aren't sub to Sean, please do go and quickly sub to him. Great channel, does his Spurs walks, amongst other things. But his Spurs walks are the best thing, aren't they, Sean?
Yeah, daily stuff, yeah, with my dog Bugsy.
Bugsy, the legend. Go and join the Spurs Talk Show ponies, guys. I've just whacked it in the comments. If you're watching an audio, go over to YouTube, smash Sean a sub. Massively appreciate it. Guys, also smash a like on this video if you do want more content, and subscribe. Us and a lot of new faces today. Thank you for all your support. Andre as well, thank you for all the graphics as well, mate. Thanks as always. And guys, as always, come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs.